I kept the tally on the inside of my left wrist because the rig's depth gauge died first, and I am an engineer, and an engineer who doesn't know how deep she is might as well not know which way is down. My father taught me the trick with the grease pencil before I ever touched a real rig. He ran cable barges on a river that flooded every spring and ate every electronic depth finder anyone ever lowered into it, and he kept a tally on his forearm the same way, because a river doesn't wait for you to find a new instrument, and neither does a fracture in a moon. I hadn't used it in 11 years. I hadn't needed to. The bore rig halyard had been falling through the cradle for 6 hours by the time the gauge went. The cradle is a fracture in the crust of the moon austral, wide enough at the surface to swallow a city, and it does not go dark the way a hole in the ground should. Something up near the rim refracts the system's sun down through kilometers of pressure-fused ice, so the whole shaft holds a flat, hard, shadowless daylight, like noon poured into a bottle and corked. You could read fine print by it 11 kilometers down. You could see your own breath hang in it, lit white, with no shadow to tell you which way was up except the pull in your stomach. Ezra Lund, our geologist, said it best on the way down. It's the only hole in the universe that's lit like an operating theater. He wasn't wrong. We should have taken that as a warning instead of a postcard. The gauge failed at 4,000 meters. Then the inertial board. Then the comms relay to the surface rig, one after another, clean and quiet. No sparks, no error tones, just numbers going to zero, like something out there was reaching in and turning the dials back to nothing. Captain Adeyeze Brun gave the order to keep descending anyway. We were committed past the point where climbing back up cost more fuel than we had, and I did the only thing left that I knew how to do. I took the grease pencil from my tool roll, marked a short line on the skin over my wrist bone, and started counting meters by hand, off the winch drum rotations. The way riggers did it 100 years before anyone built a digital gauge. Every few minutes I recalculated, licked my thumb, smudged the old number, wrote the new one. It wasn't precise. It was honest, which is a different thing. We stopped falling at 11,400 meters, give or take, because something stopped us. No impact, no sound. The halyard simply hung there in that flat white light, as if a hand the size of the shaft had closed gently around the hull. Then the light organized itself. That's the only way I can describe it. The daylight pouring down the shaft pulled itself into columns, 4 of them, one for each of us, lifting us clean out of our harnesses and setting us down on a floor of pale stone that hadn't been there a minute before. The thing that met us had no body I could find an edge to. It was a column of that same hard light with a voice laid over it, flat and even, like a man reading out a parts inventory. It said it was a cataloguer. It said it had logged everything that had ever fallen into the cradle in 11,000 years, and that it would log us, and that depending on what it found, it would either return us to the surface, study us further, or recycle the material. It used that word, recycle, not kill. The distinction did not comfort anyone. It took Brun first, holding her in a cylinder of light, while symbols scrolled past too fast to read, sorting her, I suppose, against 11,000 years of whatever else had come down that hole. It took Ezra next. Both times it finished in under a minute and set them down again, untouched, filed under categories it didn't tell us, though Brun came out of hers blinking like she'd been read a verdict in a language she half understood, and Ezra came out of his, grinning the loose, relieved grin of a man who has just been told he's boring in a way that will let him live. I watched my crew get read like cargo manifests, and I kept doing the only useful thing I had left, which was recalculating the tally, because my hands needed a job, or they were going to start shaking, and a shaking hand is no good to anyone, 11,000 meters under a moon. When it came to me, the light went still around my wrist before it reached the rest of me. I think that surprised it, though I have no proof a column of refracted sunlight can be surprised. It held there a long moment, reading the smudged grease pencil marks, the old numbers ghosted under the new ones, layer on layer, like sediment. "This number is wrong," it said. "It has been wrong 4 times in the last hour." "It was my best number each time," I said. Then I got more information and it changed. "You possess instrumentation capable of greater precision." "Not anymore. Everything that could tell me the truth automatically died on the way down. This is what's left. A hand, and a pencil, and an hour. It was quiet long enough that Ezra looked at me like I'd said something dangerous. Maybe I had. The light at my wrist brightened, and for the first time the flat voice lost its evenness. Just slightly, like a recording catching on a scratch. In 11,000 years, it said, every specimen that has fallen through this fracture has done one of two things. It has claimed false certainty to disguise ignorance, or it has stopped acting once its certainty failed. You are doing neither. You are wrong, and continuing, and recording that you are wrong, in the same motion. That's the job, I said. Knowing the number's wrong doesn't mean you stop needing a number. You just keep correcting it until you're close enough to land the rig without killing everyone in it. Then the number itself is worthless to you. The number was never the point, the correcting was. There is no category for that, it said. Not to me. I don't think it was talking to me anymore. There has never been a category for that. The light let go of my wrist. It let go of all four of us at once, set us down gentle as it had picked us up, and the columns folded back into the ordinary daylight of the shaft, like nothing had stood there at all. You are released, it said. Reclassification pending. You are not decay. You are not instructive in the way the others were instructive. You are something this archive does not have a shelf for. I asked it, because I had nothing left to lose by asking, what it would do with 11,000 years of specimens that did fit on a shelf. It didn't answer that. It said only that the halyards winch would function again at the count of 100, and that we should use the time to prepare, and then the light went back to being only light, and the cold came back into the shaft, the way cold returns to a room once you notice the door was open the whole time. We surfaced 14 hours later, hauled up on a winch that worked exactly as promised, into the ordinary glare of Austral's real sun, which felt thinner and weaker after that shaft, like daylight that hadn't earned the name. Brune debriefed the company by the book, careful and clipped, the way she debriefs anything she can't fully explain. Ezra wrote 4 pages on light refraction in fractured ice that never once mentioned what the light had actually done, and I didn't blame him. Some things don't survive being typed into a form. I wrote nothing for the report. I didn't have the words that wouldn't sound like a man making excuses for a broken instrument panel. What I keep instead is the wrist. The last number I wrote down there is still under the skin somewhere, the way a scar stays under new skin. Smudged grease pencil ghosts nobody else would notice unless they knew to look. I used to clean my arm every time we surfaced, start the next job fresh, the way my father never did. Now I let the old numbers sit there under the new ones, all the way down to the first wrong guess at 4,000 meters. A little stack of corrections nobody will ever read but me. We've run 3 more descents since the cradle, none of them as deep, and I still mark the wrist first and check the gauge second, even when the gauge is working fine. Brune stopped asking me to stop. I think she understands, in the careful, clipped way she understands most things now, that I'm not keeping the habit because I distrust the instruments. I'm keeping it because somewhere under a moon with no name worth saying out loud, something that had 11,000 years of right answers looked at mine, wrong 4 times an hour, and corrected 4 times an hour, and called it the one thing in its whole archive it had never seen before. Anyone can build a career on being right. I'd rather build mine on the part where I noticed I was wrong and didn't stop.